We want to tell you how you can enter for a chance to win your very own customizable tiny home and help a great cause at the same time. Imagine winning your very own home built by Modern Tiny Living with a value up to $100,000. The best part about it is you get to customize it however you want. We love living off grid, so we would definitely add solar panels so we could live anywhere we wanted in our tiny home. Every donation helps support PATH. PATH is on a mission to end homelessness, and now more than ever, their work is saving lives. PATH will remain on the front lines of our current crisis to help the most vulnerable. To potentially win the tiny home of your dreams and to support PATH, go to omaze.com/redpoppyranch to enter for a chance to win. You can also click the link in the description of this video. We wish you luck. The number one project we're focused on right now is the shop. But we've got some weather challenges over the next few days, so it's a good time to relocate the goats up on the hill and see if we can get them used to the electric fence so they can be moved around the property as needed. As much as we enjoy the goats, having them as close as they are to the house has been a bit of a challenge. Goats can be quite difficult to keep in. I ordered the S200 from Gallagher and proceeded to get everything ready for the temporary fence to be installed. Now the S200 is a solar-powered standalone electric fence charger. After doing my research, I figured out that Gallagher had basically everything I needed. I ran the weed eater around the perimeter, ensuring that nothing was going to touch the electric fence and pull power away from it. Oftentimes the biggest challenge with goats, or any animals for that matter, is just helping them understand what the fence means. It took all of about 24 hours before the goats figured out what they were working with, and they love the abundance of grass and feed that they now have. It dried out enough that I needed to get back on the shop. Within the foundation, everything is leveled and basically ready for rebar, but I first have to get the water and sewer lines in before we can tie off the rebar and pour the concrete. A couple of years ago, when we were installing water lines all over the property, I deliberately put a yard hydrant right next to the shop, knowing that I would tie into it at some point, providing the water for the shop. The trick is, at this point, to tie into it in a way where I don't shut the water down to the house for any longer than I have to. I dug down next to the water line with the backhoe and then used a shovel and pick to expose the water line so I didn't damage it with the backhoe. After shutting the valve off up at the water tank, I cut into the water line to install what's called a stop and waste valve. The stop and waste valve allows me to shut the water off to the shop if it's not being used, but then on top of that it allows the water to drain out. This is something that's typically used in cold weather application where there's a potential for freeze. After getting the stop and waste installed and turning the water back on, I now need to run the water line across to the inside of the foundation where the bathroom will be, but I also need to keep the water line at the standard freeze depth in our area to ensure that we don't have freeze issues. Our freeze depth is 30 inches up here, but I typically try to do everything around 36 to 48 inches deep with water lines. My older brother Ben, his wife, and a couple of his kids came up and spent a couple days with us. And we felt like it was a great time to relocate the pigs, as the pigs have gotten too big for their little temporary pen. And we also want to get the pigs used to the electric fence so we can move them around the property and give them the freedom of wandering around. So rather than putting them in with the goats, we thought we would first give them a smaller area to work with. And then maybe at some point we will give them a bigger section of land up on the hill somewhere.
Why is there water right there?
You know what? There's two spots on our property that have always done that. The sun has finally come out to stay. The weather is getting hot. Everything is drying out. But we've got grass and weeds growing all over the hillside. I'm curious to see what the pigs and the goats do with some of these invasive weeds that we have. The goats obviously prefer the weeds over the grass, and they're doing their job.
Evan, do you have your camera?
I'm trying to maintain the freeze depth, and rather than drilling through the foundation or the footings, I hammered a 2-inch piece of PVC underneath the footing, and I'll use this for a sleeve to run the water line through. When I originally formed up the foundation, I actually put a couple of sleeves in for the sewer and water lines, but now things have changed. The location of where we're going to put the bathroom now is not the same as where we were originally going to put it. So again, rather than drilling through the concrete with my chipping hammer, I pushed a sleeve under the footing. Putting a bucket of gravel around the stop and waste valve is super important. This gives the water a place to go after the water is shut off, allowing the water lines in the bathroom to drain out. I'm still on the hunt for an excavator, but I feel like the market is in flux right now, and I'm going to give it another month or two before I buy something. So I'm borrowing the neighbor's backhoe in the meantime. Now that I've got the water line finished and installed, I need to get the sewer line trench dug. Once the sewer is installed, I will have this inspected. I'm trying to find the existing sewer line from the house to the septic system without damaging it with the backhoe. I've got Rhett and his cousin Evan helping me look for it. But as happens so many times, I found the sewer line with a backhoe.
You hit it! You hit it! Yeah.
Put a couple of bite marks in it with the teeth from the bucket. Shoved a little bit of dirt into the sewer line, so now the sewer's holding a little bit of water that I'll have to spray out with the hose. But we found it. Evan dug around the pipe and got it exposed and ready for our new connection. Fortunately, I'm going to cut this section out of the sewer line where I tie the shop into it, so it's really not that big of a deal. I ordered a bunch of Kentucky bluegrass seed from naturesseed.com, which so far has been my go-to for all the grass seed around our area. They specialize in lawns, pastures, and wildflowers. Skylar over at Nature's Seed knew exactly what I needed when I called him, and we're really working hard on this half of the lawn to turn it into something nice. Cedar doesn't ask for a whole lot, but I know she would love to have a nice, beautiful lawn to look at. After dragging a harrow around the yard with a side-by-side, I then put the seed down with my old vintage seed spreader. And then I took the harrow around the yard one more time in an attempt to cover up the grass seed. Now we've got to keep the grass seed as wet as we can until it sprouts. Skylar was also good enough to send me a bag of red poppy seeds that I'll put all over the hillside. This little spot on our property is right in front of our solar panels. And if you go back and watch some of our earliest videos, when we very first bought our land, there was an old abandoned camp trailer parked here that had been damaged by the snow. Every time I look at this little spot, it reminds me of that moment, and for whatever reason, I don't like it. When I had the skid steer last week, it had started raining too much to work on the foundation. And the idea of letting the skid steer sit and do nothing was not an option, so I decided it was time to dig into this hillside and make an attempt to put in another terrace where we will probably have another garden. But in my mind, the idea is that I need to put this terrace in so I can run the conduit up the hill where I want to relocate the solar panels. So more than anything, this was an attempt to get something done with a tool I rarely have, while the weather was trying to tell me to stay inside. After spending a few hours in the skid steer, I got it roughed in, but it's going to require quite a bit more work before it's finished. The International 340D tractor that I picked up has an axle seal leak that I want to take care of. I ordered what I thought to be the right parts, and it's a good day to get them installed. The rear tires are filled with a liquid that's mostly water, but it doesn't freeze. This liquid is used to add more weight to the rear of the tractor. These tires have to weigh close to 800 pounds apiece if I had to guess. Moving them around, I have to be a little bit careful. After making an attempt to fix the leak, I figured out I did not have the right seals, but I made an attempt to tighten up the one seal that was leaking. I then drained the hydraulic fluid out of the tractor, and it was obvious that water had gotten in here, and it was also obvious that the 10 gallons of hydraulic fluid that's required was mostly gone. There was maybe 3 gallons left. I put the 10 gallons of hydraulic fluid back in it that the tractor requires. And I took the tractor and ran it up and down the road. As the road was drying out from the 3 days of bad weather that we had, but after just a couple of hours of sunlight, the road is already too hard for me to do much with. Don't forget to go to omaze.com/redpoppyranch to enter for a chance to win the tiny house and help a great cause at the same time. After having 3 inches of very heavy wet snow last week and the hoop house being collapsed, we got it fixed. Cedar's garden is doing awesome. Next week we'll finish the sewer system, get the rebar tied, get it inspected, and continue moving forward on the shop.